You are 16 years old. Your name is Dhirubhai Ambani. Standing in the middle of a desert in a country that isn't even yours, filling up strangers' cars for a wage that barely feeds you. You have no education, no connections, no money, and nobody around you would look twice if you suddenly disappeared tomorrow. But you have one thing nobody can take away from you: a mind that refuses to accept that this is all you'll ever be. You are counting dimes under a desert sun right now, but one day you will count them in the billions, and you will teach an entire nation how to invest along the way. Level 1. The boy who sold snacks to survive. You were born in 1932 in a small village called Chorwad, on the coast of Gujarat, India, into a typical middle-class household, where the smallest of luxuries is the reward of months of saving. Your father is a school teacher, respected in the village but poor in his pocket, and there are 5 children in the house competing for a plate that was only ever meant for 3. You don't wait for opportunity to knock on that door, because you already know it never will. As a teenager, you start selling bhajis to pilgrims, visiting a nearby temple on weekends, buying goods at wholesale, walking for miles, and selling them for a small profit. It isn't glamorous. It isn't even really a business. It's survival, plain and simple. But even as a child, you think differently as compared to someone who works for a wage. You are thinking like a trader, and every rupee that passes through your hands, you ask yourself the same question: how do I turn this 1 rupee into 2 rupees? At 17, with barely any education past secondary school, you make the decision that changes the entire direction of your life. You leave home, aboard a ship, and sail for Aden, Yemen, to join your elder brother, and find work in a land you have no understanding of. You are stepping into the unknown with a bag, a few coins, and a hunger that no amount of money could ever satisfy. Level 2. The petrol pump and the silver trick. Income: roughly 300 rupees a month. Net worth: still close to Buro. In Aden, you take a job as a clerk and gas station attendant for a trading company called Bessie & Co., earning barely enough to survive on. To everyone watching you, you are just another young Indian immigrant filling tanks under a punishing sun, sending whatever's left home to a family that needs it, but inside you are observing everything around you: the trade routes, the shipping lanes, the currency, and the commodities. You notice something almost nobody else gives attention to: a price gap between raw silver bullion and the refined silver coins used in local trade. You start melting the bullion down and reselling it as coins, quietly pocketing profits that the men standing right next to you don't even know exist. It's a small move, but it tells you everything you need to know about how your own thinking works. You don't see problems, you see gaps, and filled gaps is filled pockets. Within a few years, you're managing a filling station and handling larger shipping and trading operations for the company. You're no longer just an employee, but a man learning the entire machinery of global trade from the inside out. At 22, you marry Kokolabin, the woman who will stand beside you through everything still to come, and now you have a family to build a future for, and this time you have a lot on the line. Someone else's life depends on the decisions you make. Along the way, you realize that Aden was never the destination, but a stop in the journey. In 1958, you make the boldest move of your life. You return to India with a small amount of savings and an enormous amount of experience, and you decide it's finally time to build something that belongs to you. Level 3. You move to Mumbai in 1958, a place that is not kind to newcomers like you. It's loud, competitive, and unforgiving, and you have almost nothing to your name except roughly 15,000 rupees and a plan nobody asked to hear. You start a small trading firm, first dealing in spices, then shifting into something more ambitious: yarn. You call it Reliance Commercial Corporation, a subtle name for what will eventually become one of the largest business empires the world has ever seen. You work out of a tiny office doing every single task yourself, negotiating and calculating. You trade polyester yarn and start understanding something almost no other businessman in India understands yet: that the country's textile future doesn't lie in cotton alone. It lies in synthetic fiber, a market nobody around you even know exists. By the mid-1960s, you set up your first textile mill in Naroda, Gujarat, and launch a fabric brand that will become a household name across the entire country: Vimal. It isn't just cloth, it's marketing genius. And you take that fabric directly into cities and villages through thousands of retail outlets, letting ordinary Indians feel a luxury they'd never seen or heard of. Then, in 1977, you take Reliance public. You convince small investors, shopkeepers, farmers, and clerks, people who have never once touched a stock market in their lives, to buy shares in your company, turning ordinary Indians into part owners of your dream. It works. The IPO is wildly oversubscribed, and overnight, thousands of common people become shareholders in what will grow into an empire. This is the moment the boy who once sold snacks outside a temple becomes the man teaching an entire nation how to invest. Level 4. The empire expands. Revenue, crossing into the hundreds of crores. Net worth, entering the $100 million range through the 1980s. You don't just sell the finished product, you build the entire chain behind it. Reliance moves upstream into petrochemicals, manufacturing the raw materials that used to be imported from abroad. You build one of the largest and most complex polyester and petrochemical plants in the world, first at Patalganga and later at Hazira, turning Reliance into a fully integrated giant stretching from raw oil-based material to fiber and from fabric to finished garment. Along the way, you face unimaginable criticism. Rivals accuse you of manipulating stock prices and bending government policy in your favor. Regulators investigate you more than once. Newspapers call you ruthless. You don't flinch, you don't give attention, but rather you keep building, insisting that scale, speed, and self-belief are what differentiate the people who dream from the people who deliver. By 1986, after decades of relentless work, you suffer your first stroke, paralyzing your right hand, a brutal reminder that even empires are built on fragile human bodies, and that the truest form of wealth is health. Yet even partially paralyzed, you keep steering the company, slowly handing more responsibility to your sons, both of whom you've trained since childhood to think in numbers, risk, and scale. By the early 1990s, Reliance becomes India's largest private sector company, and you become the first Indian industrialist to turn your business into a Fortune 500 company, an almost unthinkable achievement for something that began with a boy selling snacks outside a temple. You not only proved the people who criticized you wrong, but changed the way the world thinks of Indian industrialists forever. Before you, no one could even imagine an Indian company being a part of the Fortune 500. Level 5. The final chapter of a legend net worth. At death 2.9 billion global rank. By the year 2000, you are no longer just a businessman. You are a symbol, a living case study taught in business schools, a man millions of Indians point to and say, if he can do it starting with nothing, maybe I can too. But success doesn't stop the clock from ticking. In June 2002, you suffer a second, far more severe stroke. You're rushed to Breach Candy Hospital in Mumbai and fall into a coma, and for over a week, doctors fight to save you. On July 6, 2002, at the age of 69, you pass away. You leave behind no formal will, but you don't need one. You leave behind something much bigger, an empire worth close to $3 billion. A Fortune 500 company, and 2 sons trained since birth to carry the fire forward. In 2016, 14 years after your death, the Indian government honors you posthumously with the Padma Vibhushan, one of the nation's highest civilian awards. Think about that for a second. A boy who couldn't afford to finish college, a teenager filling petrol tanks under a desert sun, investigated, and underestimated for most of his career, and yet you didn't just build a company, you built a belief, the belief that in India, a nobody could become a somebody if he was willing to bet everything on himself. The legacy, how Mukesh Ambani carried the fire forward. When you passed away in 2002, Reliance stood at a crossroads. There was no formal succession plan, and eventually the businesses split. Anil took telecom, power, and financial services, while Mukesh kept the crown jewel, Reliance Industries itself, with its oil refining, petrochemicals, and energy operations. What happened next proved that your greatest investment was never a plant or a factory. It was your son's mind. Mukesh, trained in chemical engineering and groomed inside Reliance's operations since his 20s, he didn't just protect what you built, he multiplied it. He oversaw the construction of the Jamnagar refinery complex, the largest single-site oil refinery on the planet, capable of processing enormous volumes of crude every single day. Then in 2016, he did something even you might not have predicted. He launched Reliance Jio, a telecom venture that offered India's population near-free mobile data. It triggered a data revolution, collapsing internet prices across the entire country and putting a smartphone-powered connection into the hands of hundreds of millions of first-time users. Competitors who had dominated Indian telecom for decades were forced to merge or shut down entirely. Mukesh then expanded into retail, building one of the largest retail networks in India, and more recently into green energy and artificial intelligence infrastructure, positioning the company for the next 50 years, not just the next 5. Today, Reliance Industries generates well over $100 billion in annual revenue, and Mukesh's personal net worth has crossed the $100 billion mark at various points. making him consistently one of the richest individuals, not just in India, but across all of Asia. But here's the lesson worth remembering. You didn't just leave your sons money, you left them a mindset, the belief that scale isn't something you wait for, it's something you build, brick by brick, decade by decade. From a teenager melting silver in the deserts of Yemen, to a global empire spanning oil, telecom, retail, and technology, this is what happens when you as a person refuses to accept the size of the box you were born into. You were a desert boy who became a billionaire, and his son turned that billion into 100 billion. So, here's my question for you. What's the one gap you've been walking past every day, the one nobody else seems to notice, that could actually change your entire life if you finally decided to bet on it? Let me know in the comments, and for more life-changing stories, make sure you subscribe and click the bell icon below. And if you enjoyed living this journey of building an empire from nothing, there's another billionaire's rise waiting to be told.